How you doing, Mark?
Good. How are you, Chuck? Good to
Real
see you.
good.
Hello, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
Very good, thanks, under
Good.
the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a good summer overall.
Oh,
Oh,
got a
I'm
good
glad
summer,
to
a
hear that.
beautiful autumn. We had a great autumn. I mean, we can't complain about that.
No.
I mean, this is last year, if I remember correctly, we got colder weather in October and a little more snow than we have gotten this year. So I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, me too.
Just need to get a little more moisture over the winter and I'll be happy.
Yeah, that's true. Hi, Mayor.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Are we staying warm?
Oh, yeah.
Good, good. I think it snowed more today than they were calling for.
I agree.
Yeah, really.
I think I've got about 6 inches on my tables out front.
Yeah.
Here we are complaining about the moisture, right?
I'm not complaining.
Oh, I would like to take this opportunity to point out that I'm on time for this meeting. I thought I'd share that with you guys. I was telling Jonathan the problems I have getting out, so I got out early this time. So
You
So
beat
let's-
me last time though, Art.
pardon? Yeah, well, no, you know what though, Scott, I had the same thing you did. I had the pages in,
Yeah,
but by accident I turned to that page and saw it was the 6 o'clock, not 7. But that was purely by accident that I
I
discovered
think
that.
they're trying to keep us sharp.
Yeah, it was a test.
I failed.
So Jim Clark said he would be late to the meeting. He's out on the road, working some activity out there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So who are we missing? Bob. John Curtis is here nice and early. How about that? So we'll wait a few minutes on Bob. Is that all we're missing, Bob?
Carmen's on her way in right now.
Okay. Hello, Carmen. Sorry to have to bother you this weekend. All right. Give it a few more minutes here. How's the snow down there in your neck of the woods, Carmen?
It's coming down pretty good. It doesn't look like it's accumulating at all, but it was surprisingly heavy when I drove from here to from Lakewood to here. So it's how about up there? Are you in the magic zone where nothing is happening, or are you getting stuck?
No, we've got about 6 or 7 inches up here. John
Oh,
hasn't
wow.
plowed, John hasn't plowed the road yet. It's coming down big snowflakes. A little while
Really?
ago, yeah, really big
Yeah.
snowflakes. Yeah.
All right, moisture. All right, that's all right. Good.
And the forecast has been revised. It's supposed to get down to about 12 degrees tonight. So it's much colder than was originally predicted for tonight.
Ooh.
So,
And how about the snow for tomorrow? Is it supposed to end, Andy? Do you know?
yes, I think in the next hour or two. But that's what they said earlier.
Yeah, it seems worse than they expected.
Welcome, Dr. Ryan.
Hello, everyone.
As many meetings as we're on together, we all just ought to move in together. Oh, we can't do that. We can't. We got a social distance.
Well, I don't know. We might if it's less than 10, we all just stay together.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get going. It's a little after 6. This is November 9th. This is our work session. We have just a couple of items tonight to get caught up on. We've invited Dr. Ryan from our public health director in just to talk to us, since we're going to be talking in a minute about the enforcement of the public health order locally. And then we can kind of give an update from the public health side of what's going on, why we decided to move to level orange by the end of the week, and what we're hoping to get out of that. So real quick, before we get to that, let's go to, we've got Mark Grable. If you don't know Mark Grable, he is the operator, and he's got about 4 businesses up in Georgetown, but the Georgetown Loop, he operates that. And as you know, we've been talking about our coach that luckily they came out and gave us the heads up that if we didn't do something immediately, that we were going to lose that thing. So, you know, Mark's expertise and his staff up in Georgetown and Silver Plume, their staff has made a huge and a tremendous offer to us to help us get that thing under a cover and start working an assessment on it. So with that, I'm going to let John Kane and Mark have this discussion with us. Tell us what's going on and kind of the agenda and the timeline on when we're planning on moving this thing and what the next steps will be with our coach. So John, Mark, take it away.
You want to start, John, or would you like me to start?
Either way, as the mayor said, we've been working to try to figure out a way to save that thing. And as you know, we've been doing this for some time. I think we've come up with an arrangement that works pretty well to get this work done. Mark, do you want to speak to just the technical details of it? And if there's questions, I can kind of fill in the gaps or.
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to. Thank you. As Mike said, the coach is kind of at a turning point here. We need to get it sealed up again and out of the weather because the deterioration is going to pick up significantly. There's already a fair amount of water infiltration through the windows, which have rotted out on the bottom of the sash, and it's going down the interior on the side of the car, not necessarily inside of the car, but behind the siding. And hopefully we can get that moved up to Silver Plume and undercover very soon, or boarded up there. So I think I've been talking with John and Andy for a little while now, and I do think that we have a good plan to move it up there fairly economically and take off the siding and other parts that are deteriorated and make an assessment of what the coach is going to need to start putting it back together. And concerning the time frame, it's as soon as we get one little part of the agreement hammered out, which is legalese part of things, we're ready to prepare the coach to be moved. Some of that's going to come down to when the transport company can fit that into their schedule. The person that we're going to use to transport the coach moves rail items. That's basically their only business. They move hundreds of things probably each year. We wanted to go with somebody that had some extreme expertise because we know how much you love the coach. We know how important it is historically. We want the coach to get up there in as good a condition as it left Idaho Springs. We'll also be working around the weather. We're very cognizant of how important the coach is to Idaho Springs, and our main objective in this project is to make sure that we get the coach in good shape for you in Idaho Springs and make sure that it will be in good shape for years to come. One last thing that I'd like to mention is the person that did the restoration on it probably close to 30 years ago, or at least 20 to 30 years ago, was the one who's going to be the project manager. And he has some of the best experience in the industry in restoring historic rail cars. So I think we're in a good position to do it. We want to do it as economically as we can for you, but most importantly, make sure that it's a job that's really well done.
one other thing just to note, with the project management team that we have, it's going to allow us to prepare a very good grant application to History Colorado next March. I think it's due on March 1st. But with this assessment that we're going to do, it's going to position us very well to have a good application to that for further restoration work with the state. And it'll kind of answer the questions the state had about the coach as well. So.
All right. Mark, you said the haulers. I was going back and forth with Mayor Sam, your shop supervisor down there. Is he still the one that's going to organize this move?
He's going to assist with that. Phil is the one who normally deals with Phil Johnson with the trucking company. Sam and Larry are going to assist, as I understand it, moving some things around up at the facility. So we really appreciate Larry's offer to donate time, and we'll definitely take advantage of that. The coach is very big, so it takes some specialty equipment, and that's one of the other reasons we're going with the company that we almost always have move our equipment.
All right. Council, I'm opening it up for any questions or thoughts for Mark or John. All right. I strongly feel that we've got the best group of folks that can help us get this thing done. I trust Mark Grable 100% of with our possessions, if you will. Thank you so much for offering to do this for us, Mark, and making it a collaborative effort between you and us. And really, you know, this is something that our whole county recognizes. You know, this isn't just about Idaho Springs. It's a county, you know, asset as far as I'm concerned, because we know it's been here for a long time.
It
Okay.
is. And just one more thing, if the council would ever want to come up and look at it during the process, just let me know. We always operate in a very transparent manner, so you can see exactly what's happening.
All right, great. One other last thing, the Georgetown Loop has officially closed for, what are you thinking, Mark? How long you looking at staying closed? You're not going to do the Christmas train this year, is that correct?
No, that's in the back of our minds, and thanks to Dr. Ryan for giving us some advice. We were hoping to start at the day after Thanksgiving, because that's always a great weekend. I'm not advertising anything until we see how things are progressing over the next week to week and a half. So pretty soon, if we weren't able to operate starting by the first weekend in December, it's not going to make any sense to do.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, Mark, for being with us and working with us on this project. We're very excited about getting this thing in undercover and know that it's not going to deteriorate anymore than being out in the weather. So thanks again.
Thanks to you. Thanks to Andy, John, and all of you on council. Very, very appreciated.
Yeah, thanks again. Okay, let's move on. The next item that we have on our agenda, and the reason that we brought Dr. Ryan on to kind of inform us of what's going on, what CDPHE, because a lot of us, or a lot of you, weren't on the call on Friday when the determination was made that we were going to go ahead and move into orange level at 6 a.m. on Friday. So with that, I'm just going to open it up for Dr. Ryan to kind of just give us what's going on, what our counts are looking like here, and why we made that decision. Dr. Ryan, you've got the floor. Go right ahead.
Mayor Hillman, I thought you invited me because you liked me.
Well, that too.
I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Good evening. So sort of the facts and the reality on the ground right now. In the state of Colorado, our numbers are and have been for the last 3 to 4 weeks, absolutely through the roof. What do I mean by that? We've hit record numbers every day of new cases, new hospitalizations since the beginning of this pandemic. So we're in a place now here in Colorado, and Colorado is one of 43 states that are experiencing this right now. So it's really across the country. It's what the experts predicted about 5 months ago, what happened, and now it's happening in spades. It's driven primarily by one, cold weather, and that's relevant because it's driving people inside where they used to be outside. There's also a couple other biological and physiological reasons for that in terms of what happens during the cold weather for viruses like this, but I'm not going to get into the biology right now of it. So what we're experiencing in Colorado is not unique. It's similar to what is going on in many states in this country. Just as an example, in Wyoming, their test positivity rate is around 40%. That means 40% of the people they're testing are positive. In South Dakota, as of last week, it was 53%. And so some states are just absolutely ravaged. The challenge with states like that is they don't have a medical infrastructure to speak of. So Wyoming, as an example, is sending their patients to Colorado and to Utah. Utah has just declared a state of emergency because their hospital, they're about 2 to 3 weeks ahead of where Colorado is now. So they have declared a state of emergency. The Utah governor, for the very first time, strangely enough, has declared a mandate, face mask mandate for the whole state. A little late, but nevertheless. What we're experiencing in Colorado is similar in that our numbers have gone up for the last 4 weeks straight. I unfortunately don't have a slide to show you right now, but they're basically, it's straight up like this. As we know from history over the last 8 months, that will be followed by hospitalizations. There's about a 2 to 3 week lag in that. We're already seeing and have for the last 2 weeks an increase in hospitalizations across the state. The governor has sounded the alarm bell because when hospitalizations go up, what eventually happens is fatalities will go up. Because once we run out of beds, if you need a bed and there isn't one available, the likelihood of you dying is significantly higher. We're seeing that now in many states who are 2 to 3 weeks ahead of us. In Clear Creek County, we have followed that same trend as in Colorado. We have experienced over the last 3 weeks the highest number of cases per day, per week, and over a 3 week period that we've ever experienced since the start of it. We're now in excess of 100 cases. In Clear Creek County, we were at 40 probably 4 weeks ago. So significant jump in the number of cases. It's being driven by several things. The first and foremost is small gatherings now. The reason that's a problem is because the virus is so present out in the community. It's now estimated that less than 1 in 100 people is positive. 3 weeks ago, it was 1 in 300. So in 3 short weeks, we've made it so prolific throughout the community. It's now 1 in less than 100 people is positive. So in any town, you spit in any direction and you're likely to hit somebody who's COVID positive. Our test positivity rate in Clear Creek has gone from less than 1% about 3 weeks ago to now greater than 7%. We're testing 3 days a week in Idaho Springs, in Silver Plume, in Georgetown, in Evergreen, and we rotate between those on any given week, but we're testing anywhere from 200 to 300 people a week. And we're looking at about a 7% positivity rate. Having small gatherings is particularly challenging at this point because if you invite your best friend and their family over for dinner, odds are you're not going to be wearing a mask. They're going to be, because you like them, they're going to be there for several hours and you're going to be in close proximity to them. We know that 40 to 60% of people are asymptomatic. They don't even know they have COVID. And those people are what we call super spreaders. Not only do they have it, but they're out in the community and because they don't know they have it, they're engaging in behaviors like small gatherings or going to social events or bars where people do not have the protection of a mask, and they obviously don't have the protection of them wearing a mask. And they're out there in the community. We have probably half the cases now in Clear Creek County are coming from those types of events. One family goes over to another family's home and suddenly 8 people have COVID. Teenagers, one child has it and they, after school, although they're abiding by the rules in school, they get out of school and they're now 4 of them in a car, 3 of them in a car, take their masks off. All it takes is one of them to have it, and now all 3 or 4 of them have it. So once it's this prevalent in the community, it doesn't take much to spread it. And right now, although we only have 1 additional hospitalization in the last 3 weeks and no deaths, that could easily change on a dime, as have our prevalence numbers. So we're trying very, very, very hard to get our prevalence numbers down so that we don't incur hospitalizations and subsequent fatalities. That's what we're trying very hard to avoid. I would say that businesses as a whole in the community in Clear Creek and in Idaho Springs are doing a great job. There are some exceptions to that who literally just don't care. We've been in there several times. We've now issued them a warning letter. The next step is to issue them a subpoena, so they have to go to court. It's taken a little bit of arm twisting, et cetera, to get that to happen. But it's a necessary, unfortunate necessary thing to happen, because when you have a business who no one in the business wears a mask and they don't require anybody in the business who comes in to wear a mask, it basically gives the impression that masks are not necessary. You don't have to wear them in our business. And then that behavior sort of proliferates out into the broader community. I and my team are doing the best job that we possibly can. Our nurses are working absolutely tirelessly 7 days a week to try to identify cases, identify all their close contacts, and sequester this as best we can from a public health perspective. But it really takes the broader community beyond just the businesses for people to understand the seriousness of this and what they can do themselves. Now, moving from blue, it used to be level 1, 2, and 3. Now they changed it to colors. Next week it'll be shapes. I don't know. But right now we went from level 1. Now we're in level 2 as of this morning, and we're moving to level 3 on Friday morning. That isn't really a decision that I made. It's not a decision that the Board of Health made. The state made that decision. The state made that decision based on our numbers, the number of new cases we have in any given week, and our number of positive tests of all the tests that we do, our test positivity, as well as a number of different factors. Over the last 3 weeks, I've been in discussions with CDPHE on almost a daily basis about our numbers and where they were coming from and what we were doing to help keep them in control. We're now past that point. So CDPHE's call with us on Friday was really them informing us that as of today, we were going to level yellow. If things continue to deteriorate over the week, and they have, we've continued to have cases every day over the weekend, including today, that they would move us to orange on Wednesday. After our discussion on Friday, I contacted CDPHE and I asked them if we could push that to Friday, that we would be taking all the steps that we could along the week to help our businesses prepare for that and do what they can, but to try to push it down the line at least till Friday morning. They agreed to that, and so now that's really where we're at. In order to get out of orange, we need to basically over the next 2 to 3 weeks dramatically reduce our number of cases and our test positivity. That's the only thing that's going to change what happens and move us in the opposite direction. If Clear Creek County and other counties, and I might add as a context, we're not alone in this. Many counties around us are moving from level 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. Eagle County and Summit County and Jefferson County and Denver, they're all on their way to orange, if not already. So we're not in this alone. The challenge is the governor doesn't currently have the political will to make the decision to make statewide decisions for all. He's basically said to the counties, we're going to treat you counties independently, and we want to address this from a county by county basis. Unfortunately, we're not Hawaii. We are not surrounded by water. We're surrounded by land in which people who live in Clear Creek County work in other counties and vice versa. So there's a tremendous flow back and forth on a daily basis between counties. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense from my perspective for Clear Creek to have a unique plan that's different than Jefferson County and the surrounding counties, because We alone cannot solve this problem. We need to work together with the counties around us. I'm reaching out to those counties to understand what measures they're taking. I know counties like Jefferson are absolutely inundated. They have so many cases, they're not even contacting half of them, which is a huge problem. There's nothing that Clear Creek can do about that, and there's nothing the state can do about that. The state is maxed out from a testing perspective and from a contact tracing perspective. They have no more assistance to give to counties at all. We're sort of on our own, has been the message we've been receiving from the state for the last 3 weeks. They're tapped out. Any questions so far?
Not so far. Anybody, council? Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
In different colors. What's the next color? You got orange, and then there's a red, or
yeah. So
stay at home.
The way that they organize this is there's the protect. So it's a spectrum, right? On the left side of the spectrum is protect our neighbor. It's the most lenient, the most open, and there's really only 3 counties in the whole state that ever achieved that because their numbers were so low. Gilpin was our closest neighbor who ever achieved that. And then after protect our neighbors, there's the protect or safer at home. Basically, they broke that down into 3 levels: 1, 2, and 3. 3 being the worst, 1 being the best. They've subsequently changed those numbers to color coordinated. So it's blue, yellow, red, or I'm sorry, blue, yellow, orange. We were in blue as of last week, but as I said, over the last 3 weeks, our numbers have deteriorated significantly. So they moved us temporarily to yellow, but now we're moving to orange on Friday. The next step after that is red. It's what we experienced in March and April. It's where you have to stay home, where businesses are closed and everyone is ordered to stay home for a 2 to 3 week period until we can get this under control. We're hoping to never get to that point, but it's going to take everyone doing their part, not having social gatherings, not having parties, not going to the bar. You can still go out and socialize. I'm not suggesting that you be a hermit. You could still go to a restaurant and get takeout and go see your friends and socialize, but in a socially distant way. Don't go to their home and sit in their home and have dinner with them without mask for hours on end. It's a surefire way to get COVID. And that is only going to keep us either where we are or take us in the other direction to red. That, and I might add, that determination will not be made by myself or the Board of Health. It's made by CDPHE. We don't have any say really or control over it. I can maybe convince them we should wait another week or something like that, but it's a decision not made by us. It's made by the state. And so we're doing everything in our power to get us to go in the opposite positive direction.
Okay. One thing that I would like Dr. Ryan to explain, because my first thought of, we've got middle school that went back today. They've been out on they were doing remote learning, and the high schoolers go back on Wednesday. And of course, I think, why in the heck are we letting these kids go back to school? But as today, Dr. Ryan explained why that's actually better for our kids. So Dr. Ryan, will you explain that and why we're going to go ahead and go through with the kids going back to school?
Sure. So a couple things. One, not only data in Clear Creek County, but across the state of Colorado and across the country. The data shows that in elementary school, as an example, transmission between kids in elementary school is the lowest of any age group in the population. Exactly why that is, we don't yet know a scientific explanation for that, but it has the lowest transmission of any population between that age group. What we also know in Clear Creek County and in Colorado, transmission within school, so child to child, either at elementary school or middle school or high school, is quite low as well. Most of the cases we've had in the middle school and high school were not gotten in the school. They were gotten outside of the school. So kids in the school were wearing their mask and washing their hands and doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then when they left the school and took their mask off and got in a car with 3 or 4 of them and traveled around for 20 minutes doing what teenagers do, that's where they became positive, COVID positive. So what we're seeing is not in-school transmission. We have had several cases that were in school for several days. In all of their close contacts, they did not give it to within the school. That we're sure of. So we made the decision, and the elementary schools have been in school this whole time. It's the high school and middle school where transmission within that group is a little bit higher than it is in elementary school across the country. But we made a decision that we're going to try to keep the kids in school as long as we possibly can. It's where they will do best in school, not at home. We do know that their education suffers a bit while they're trying to learn at home. So getting them in school, and we're hoping with the restrictions more broadly in the community, will help us to better control what goes on outside of the school. I'm pretty confident in what the school system is doing. I have great confidence in Karen, in the principal at the high school, Chris, in what they're doing. I've witnessed it firsthand throughout the school. They're doing an absolutely fantastic job. It's what happens outside of the school that isn't in their control. It's in the control of the parents and the broader community in terms of what kids are doing. So we're hoping that with the restrictions in the broader community, we can then have the kids stay in school and deal with cases on a case-by-case basis and try to quarantine as few kids as humanly possible and keep the rest of the kids at school. We think it's what's best for the kids. Sometimes it's a little difficult when we have cases and they have so many contacts. I don't know how one kid could have 26 contacts, but that is a reality in a 2-day period. We're really trying to discourage that sort of thing. The fewer people you come into contact with, the better. The fewer kids have to get quarantined, the less interruption it is to everyone's education. And it's, you know, limit your circle. As I say to my 2 kids who go there, it's okay to not have friends this semester, next semester. You know, there's more important things in life, and staying in school is probably the best thing you can do. And if you don't want to get quarantined, have as little interaction with other people at school as possible. You could still be social, just do it from a distance. You don't have to, you know, be 2 feet away from kids. Any questions on that?
No, I wish I'd have brought my kid in a little earlier to hear what you're saying, because this is what I've been preaching to him, that, you know, having people over is not a good idea. Though we can't have people from outside come into our house, because the chance of them carrying it into our home is very high right now.
Yeah.
And we need to.
You know,
Hey, Doctor, is the state or anyone talking about, like, some of the cities and other states closing pubs and restaurants at 10 o'clock at night till whatever? And or are we considering about out-of-state people who are coming into our state? I believe measured over 50 or 60,000 came in over the summer, some number like that, with the other states being much higher than us and what have you. Is there any consideration at state level or any level of trying to limit that as well?
You know, Arthur, a great question. It's my impression that the governor is not willing or wanting to close our economy any more than is necessary. Our economy, and like any state, it's a fine balance between the economics of it and the health of it. You cannot have a robust economy without getting COVID under control. It's not possible.
Right.
It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with any of that. That's just reality. You cannot have a strong economy until COVID's under control. And so it's a balance. You're like on a teeter-totter. There are restrictions that you can put in place that do limit economics, but improve the potential for health. So that's where we're at right now, and that's where the governor's at right now. He, as only as a last resort, it would take the hospitals to be inundated, I think, for him to pull that lever of shutting the state back down. He understands the economics of it, and he doesn't really want to go there. Is willing, but doesn't really want to go there. So him sort of passing the buck to counties to say, you guys do what you need to do. And Denver and other cities in counties in the state are doing significantly more restrictive movements. For instance, some cities are banning social gatherings of any sort. You know, half the people are gonna do that and follow that, but half are not. And so it's that half that aren't that are really impacting the entire community. I can preach till I'm blue in the face, but until people actually take responsibility for their own behavior and own actions and stop the spread, we're not really going to see much change. As far as tourism, as far as tourists are concerned, our nurses have done a fantastic job in talking to people and talking to cases and trying to understand where it is that they got COVID from. We're successful, in my opinion, about 85% of the time in narrowing down a very small window of where they may have contracted the virus from. It's now getting very difficult because it is so prevalent in the community that it's making it more difficult. But as far as we can tell, as of probably 3 weeks ago, very few, if any, cases were contracted from tourism. They were contracted from people leaving our state and going and traveling to other states and coming home and getting it from the other state and bringing it back, and or family or friends coming from other states and coming and staying with them for a night or 2 or 3 and leaving, and then finding out 2 days later they're COVID positive and they gave it to the family they stayed with. That's been the vast majority of our cases up to about 4 weeks ago. Very little, if any, have come directly from tourists or tourists coming into our county, as far as we can tell.
Well, this leads me into another subject, which is probably not a favorable one to bring up, but we do have tonight on the agenda for our later meeting, short-term rentals. In that case, are we not inviting people from other states into homes of people who live here? And is that not an issue to be concerned about?
It is an issue to be concerned about. And I was just in communication about an hour and a half ago with CDPHE about that very topic. What they're doing, if it's a shared environment, meaning you're just renting out a room in your home that has common space with you, those sorts of things we're going to have to potentially put an end to for now. If it's you renting your home out to people like a hotel where you're not there, it's not a shared space. Those sorts of things, I don't see any reason why they can't continue in that sort of way. But anytime you have a shared space and you're inviting people in from outside of our community, I think those sorts of things we're going to have to at least tamp down for the near term. But the general rental of your home outright, I don't really see any reason to put an end to that.
I was talking about the first example, not the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be putting guidance out probably in the next day or so around that very topic.
All right, thank you.
Because we know a lot of these VRBOs, it's a huge house that can sleep 16 people, and families from all over come and meet in the middle. And now you have 4 or 5 households in one location, which is very problematic.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I have a question as well.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was talking to Chuck Harmon this morning and brought up the subject about morbidity. We hear about the deaths and the hospitalizations and the number of cases, but some of his family members work in COVID wards, and a lot of the people they're sending home are still very ill, not shedding the virus. But the long term, I was wondering what your comments might be about the kind of dark picture there, it seemed to me.
Great question, Bob. So there's sort of 2 things to that. The first is people who are symptomatic, who continue to have severe symptoms well beyond any sort of them being potentially still shedding the virus. So long-term symptoms, we're seeing that more and more as we are able to, in the medical field, they're treating patients a lot better, which has brought mortality down significantly. But what's happened is individuals who are positive have strong symptoms, and those symptoms continue on for months, sometimes 3-4 months in some individuals. Right now, we don't fully understand because this is only 8 months old, and a lot of people have only had it for 2, 3, 4 months, right? So we don't know yet fully the long-term ramifications of it from that perspective. When these symptoms subside, are there additional long-term ramifications, right? Is there additional scarring in the lungs, which can have a significant impact on your respiratory ability later in life? Same from the heart perspective. When you have significant inflammation for a long duration, what effect does that have 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road for potential for heart attack and those sorts of things? So that's in the individuals who are strongly symptomatic and continue to be symptomatic. There's a second group of people that is even less studied because there's been less cases of them. It's in the younger adults. So anyone 21 years in age and younger. The 18 to 21-year-olds, they're invincible. As we all know, we were once 18 to 21. Nothing on earth will kill them. They go about their business and they live life. These individuals are generally asymptomatic, meaning they have no symptoms whatsoever. They don't really feel that they have the virus. They only know and find out because they get tested. Even though they're asymptomatic or don't have any symptoms, we still don't yet, and we aren't going to know for a while, similarly, what the long-term effects are on their lungs and their heart. We have only begun to scratch the surface, and we discovered this in the football players, collegiate football players. They started to do echocardiograms and basically look at the football players' hearts. And what they found was there was significant inflammation. Even though these players had very mild symptoms, they had significant inflammation of the heart. Now, for an elite athlete, that can either A, kill you. When you push your heart to the red line and you have significant inflammation of the heart, it can literally kill you. The second thing it can do is have a long-term effect. If you have a 10% reduction in your heart function because of this inflammation, one, it can impact your ability to play said sport at a professional level. The second thing is it can potentially cause down the road, similarly, cardiac events like heart attack, et cetera. So we don't yet fully understand the morbidity, which is generally the non-fatal but serious issues that go on with this. We're only going to be learning more and more as time goes on. And that's why it's very important at this point in time to study these sorts of things. Because once we become vaccinated, we're not going to have the population that we have now in terms of individuals with COVID. So it's very important for us to study these sorts of things. And there's many people, my wife included, who are a lot smarter than I, carrying out lots of studies around individuals who are COVID positive and what are their antibody response, what is their symptomology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all this stuff is ongoing, and we're learning more and more every week and month with all that sort of stuff.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions for Dr. Ryan?
You mentioned something about Jefferson County didn't have resources and they were sending some people home. Do we have plenty of test kits for Clear Creek County looking forward?
We do. So 2 weeks ago, the state informed Clear Creek County, as well as other counties, they were no longer able to analyze our tests. The state lab reached its maximum capacity months ago. They've subsequently reached out to any and every lab in the entire country. They have engaged in a contract with a company called Curative out of California. It's a laboratory out there that has developed a test, a similar test to the one we were doing, the nasal swab test. It's a PCR test. When the state informed us that the state lab was no longer able to run our analysis, they said to Clear Creek, go and use Curative instead, which it turned out is an actual blessing. And there's several reasons for that. The first is the test that they have developed is 10% more accurate than the state lab test that we were running in the nasal swab. So it's now 90%. So 9 out of 10 people who are positive, we're going to find them. The second benefit is we're not scratching your brain with it. We're scratching the inside of your mouth in several locations. So it's a hell of a lot more enjoyable, if that's even possible, for the participant. The third thing is it's a guaranteed 48-hour turnaround time. Now, on a good day, the state was giving us test results in 48 hours, but most days were not good days. We were getting test results back in 5 to 7 to 10 days, 2 weeks at the worst point. So right now we have a test in abundance. We have 14 or 1,300 in stock. I can order them at will. It's free of charge for for the Clear Creek County. The state is paying the bill. So we can test anyone and everyone that we want. And starting next Monday, we're going to be testing the middle school and high school teachers twice a week, Mondays and Friday mornings. That way, just to give us a little bit better sense of if the teachers are bringing anything into the school, we can find them as quickly as humanly possible, isolate them away from the students, and then take action based on that. So right now, I'm more confident in our testing than I've ever been since I started in July, in terms of the number of tests we have, the accuracy of them, and the turnaround time, most importantly. It's that turnaround time that is required for our nurses to identify cases, contact them, talk to them, understand where they may have gotten the virus from, and then contact all of their close contacts to quarantine them.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Ryan. We've got another 10 minutes in the work session. If you have time, you could stick around as we explain why and talk about why the city has decided to create our own emergency ordinance with this public health order to help enforce violators. So we know in our community, and as Dr. Ryan said, that we've got cases here and businesses here that are not complying at all. They don't care. As a matter of fact, we've even heard that the workers at a couple of establishments said, take your mask off. We don't want you to wear it in here. This has become problematic. We need to make sure that our community is complying and doing as much as we can to keep ourselves healthy and safe. We know that the county, and the reason that I brought that to council is we know that the bandwidth at the county for them to head up the enforcement, and even if a citation is given and going into county court, whether it's going to be prosecuted or not. So what we're talking about and adopting tonight, if it's the will and the desire of the council, is a local enforcement that we can have Chief Malanka and Zach, our ordinance officer, or any of the officers can go into businesses if we get a complaint that, hey, I went into the Wildfire restaurant, nobody's wearing masks, they're standing right on top of each other, and you've got a problem there. We need somebody that can go over there, and this is what we're hoping to do with this ordinance is, one, have everybody comply. This is not a let's go slap a citation or a summons on somebody because they're doing this. Second of all, being local enforcement, once we give a warning and talk to them about it, if they still don't feel that they need to comply or that their business shouldn't comply, then the city would have the right to take away their business license for a while and close them down until they come into compliance. I know that Dr. Ryan, in our meetings with the county, when I mentioned this, he shook his head yes, and I know that the county and Dr. Ryan appreciates us moving forward with this and helping with this somewhat enforcement and compliance from our businesses, and not just our businesses, but our citizens that are walking around hand in hand in big groups and things like that. We want to have the local, I feel that we want to have the local ability to enforce this thing. Any comments of us doing this, Dr. Ryan?
Mike, I'm glad you mentioned that restaurant because we're going to go there tomorrow. I heard there's a problem there.
Great.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, it takes a village, and if we have a number of businesses in the community who have no interest in following what everyone else is doing, it becomes a problem. It makes it very difficult for us to have any sort of impact. If we want to get shut down as a county because our numbers are through the roof, then that's really what's going to happen. So it's only a matter of time when you have a business where no one in the entire business is wearing a mask, and nobody who comes into the business on any given day is wearing a mask because they know they don't have to wear a mask in there. Given the prevalence of COVID virus in our community, it is only a matter of time before that becomes an absolute super spreader, and there's now a dozen people in that business who are COVID positive. Literally, that could happen in a 2-day period. So any progress that we as a community make could be absolutely ruined by one business absolutely refusing to follow the mandate. Masks make a difference. The head of the CDC, who was appointed by the current administration, said unequivocally, masks make a difference. It's the single most effective way to stop the spread of the virus, both from spreading it out if you have it and or getting it. It's not political. It's a science fact-based reality that those of us who've dedicated our life to public health believe in. It's a fact. It's not our opinion. It has nothing to do with politics. It has everything in the world to do with science. If you're not a believer in science, then I don't know what to tell you, but the reality is that masks make a difference. And when you have a group in a population who refuse to wear a mask for whatever belief they have, it impacts the whole community. Now, I have businesses call me every day and citizens every single day. You need to do more. You're not doing enough. It's too much impact on our businesses. Well, businesses need to regulate themselves and regulate other businesses. If you're a business owner, you need to go into other businesses and say, hey, man, everyone's trying in this community, but your business, why is that? Do you not care about your community? Do you not care about the other businesses in this community? It's obvious you don't if you're not even willing to do the most basic thing by putting on a mask. It's not a huge ask, in my opinion.
So are
Hey, John.
bandanas and those pull-up neck things acceptable? I heard they were not in preventing the spread.
You're talking about a neck gaiter?
Yeah, neck gaiter or bandana.
Yeah.
Versus a regular mask.
A regular mask. Like all of this sort of stuff, there is now research that's ongoing looking at the efficacy of different masks. Yeah, some masks work better than others. A surgical mask, for instance, has built into the material, it has that same sort of force that exists in your dryer that attracts all of the static cling, right, to one thing. And so when the particles come out of your mouth, the mask is designed and engineered to literally trap those particles. Neck gaiter, as you described it, it's a single piece of cloth that you can see through. It is not engineered or designed to stop particles coming through it. It inadvertently does just by the sheer presence of it in front of your face. But no, it is not as effective as, say, a surgical mask or a double ply. I mean, if you can see light through something, literally see light through it, it's probably not an effective way to stop the spread of the virus. Now, we can't be the mask police either. It's very difficult to go around and say, hey, sir, that isn't sufficient. Anybody who's willing to wear something on their face to stop the spread of the virus, I take that as a win from a public health perspective. Now, what I say, you should probably not wear a gaiter. I understand the convenience of gaiters. They're super comfortable. They're super convenient. Taking it on and off, I get that. But it isn't the most effective way to stop the virus. So I'm willing to take any public health win I can get. If somebody has a gaiter on, fabulous. I would maybe advise them if they asked me, what should I wear? I'd say maybe not that. I would recommend a different sort of mask. But I know, for example, at the school, the high school, the principal is trying to work with students who do insist on wearing gaiters to maybe have a different mask, and the school is providing these students with a mask that is a little more effective in stopping the spread of the virus. Primarily because students are together for so long, it does make an impact on what the child is wearing. Whereas in a business where a customer is only in and out for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, a little less of a problem.
Yeah, I know that the gaiters, it doesn't have the wire attached to your nose, so they always slide down. So you always see people, because I had waitresses, they're sitting there constantly pulling it up over their nose, which is just as bad as not having one on. You're breathing on your hands and
you know, a gaiter makes sense if I'm a technician, HVAC technician, or a technician of some sort, and I'm really not spending a hell of a lot of time with any customers or anything like that, and I'm pretty much by myself 90% of my day. I get a gaiter. I totally understand, and it works perfect. You come into very little contact with other people in close proximity. But if you're an individual who's working in close proximity to others all day long and in close quarters, a gaiter doesn't make sense to me from a public health preventive status. So I would say, you know, people say, oh, don't wear gaiters. Well, for some people, it makes sense for what they're doing and what their role is in society. For others, it doesn't make any sense at all.
How about touch, doctor? I mean, before, take your mail at home and leave it outside and wipe it down, and, you know, or you're touching a can of peas on the in the grocery, and then you don't. I mean, is it transmitted by touch as much as they said it before, or is it been changed a little bit as far as that theory?
It's a good question, Arthur. A lot of this we're learning more and more every day, obviously, and week. Most of the transmission is in the air. It's aerosolized. I cough or sneeze or talk loudly or sing or shout because I'm in a bar and you're close to me and you can't hear me, so I'm shouting to you. That's the vast majority of transmission is occurring there. Now, if I sneeze in my hand and then I go to the bathroom and I touch the door handle, and you unfortunately come along less than 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later and you touch the door handle and you don't have a strong behavioral inclination to wash your hands well, and then you subsequently touch your face, you certainly can get the virus that way. That's true of most viruses, flu, or any of those sorts of things. You can get them in a similar fashion. But this virus is so effective and efficient. Unlike the flu, it's way more effective and efficient at transmission than the flu is. If I sneeze in the air, those particles have the ability to float for hours on end in the air. The vast majority will fall to the ground and aren't really a threat to you, but they are, when they're aerosolized, those little buggers, they just float in the air. That's why it's important to have a mask on, so that one, if I do sneeze or cough and I do have COVID, the number of aerosolized particles I'm putting out in the air for everyone else to breathe is minimized. And the air you're breathing in from a non-COVID person is minimized by having a mask on. So it's really about viral load. You can be around someone who has COVID, who isn't shedding a lot, meaning they're not, what's coming out of them via their mouth and nose is minimal. And because you have a mask on and they have a mask on, it brings it down even further. And so you're not likely to get it from them. But you don't know that. People don't have it written on their forehead how contagious they are or how much they're shedding, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. So we've got about 5 minutes. I hope everybody got to look at the document that Carmen drew up for us for this ordinance. I wanted to bring it to council because I felt that this is a true emergency. We really couldn't wait almost first reading, second reading, posting it and everything, almost 3 months. I felt that this was definitely an emergency ordinance that we needed to talk about amongst council and make a decision on putting it in place. Does anybody have any questions with the ordinance that Carmen drew up? And we need some clarification before we go into our regular meeting and take a ruling on this.
Yeah, just about the material on the mask. You know, she's saying wear a non-medical mask face cover. You know, and I'd like to have it where, you know, you're not wearing bandanas or the gaiters are not allowed. You know, like Dr. Ryan said. I don't know if that I'm interpreting it wrong or not.
Well, under the current draft of the ordinance, what it does, Councilor Curtis, is requires face coverings, and it defines face coverings as the required things as basically a uniform piece of material that securely covers a person's nose and mouth and remains affixed without the use of your hands. So, as Dr. Ryan said, I think having folks comply with the face covering requirement in general is good. And maybe for some folks, as far as they may be willing to go or able to go, the ordinance goes on to strongly encourage pursuant to the CDC guidelines, face coverings that fit snugly, that are secured with ties or loops around the ears. This is on page 4 of the ordinance. That include multiple layers of fabric that allow for breathing without restriction and that can be laundered. So this ordinance says face coverings as a baseline, basically a uniform piece of material over your nose and mouth that you don't have to hold up is the baseline. And then we also, as a city under this ordinance, encourage complying with the CDC guidelines on coverings in addition. So it is attempt to sort of walk the line of being practical and realistic, but also meaningful in requiring folks to do something, to have a face covering at the very least. Does that answer your question, Councilor Curtis?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think the gaiters are fine. And,
Yep.
But they're not really that great of material. That's my concern.
Yeah, and I'm not the expert. Dr. Ryan is, but I heard him say, it's something, right? That barrier may inadvertently be somewhat effective, not as effective as a surgical mask or another kind of mask, but we'll take what people are willing to do to an extent. I will note for you, Council, just real briefly, and I know we have to go to our 7 o'clock. I attempted to explain, and I hope you had time to read in my memo why this is in the form that it is, why we as a city cannot simply enforce the state or county's orders. We just don't have that jurisdiction. That's why this is in front of you, to legally lay down a local requirement that we could have a local enforcement, local tickets to go to our local court. That local understanding of who our business, Chris and all of our officers know these business owners and citizens. And there may be, in terms of effectiveness, a level of relationships maybe that can be more effective locally if we have a local process. And there are just some jurisdictional reasons why we can't sort of wholesale say, well, we'll just police what these other entities have done. We can't really legally do that without taking putting some local rules in place. One thing I would like your input on, and that if it's your pleasure to adopt this in your regular meeting, something that you need to decide, is if you want to have, as the state and county often do, a time period that you want to say from the get-go, hey, these rules, these local restrictions are going to be effective from, say, this Friday, like the counties, until January 1st or something. I've left some blanks near the bottom of page 4 in the ordinance for you to do that if you want, right? To sort of maybe give people the comfort of this isn't forever, right? As an ordinance usually is. We usually don't put an end to the effectiveness of ordinances, but I thought you might want to do that in this instance, right? Because this is pretty unusual, something for you to consider. So that's on the bottom of page 4. If you want to consider adopting this, please let me know when you are talking about it, if you want to fill in those dates to have a window of effectiveness or not.
So can it be revisited effective the 13th of November, which would be Friday, when the orange goes into effect across the county?
Yep.
Can we say February 1st we'll revisit this? Is that how or do we just put an ending date to it and then we have to redo it? We just revisit it on January 31st or whatever and make a decision then to continue with the ordinance. We wouldn't have to come back and make another ruling on it. We just keep going with it because it's already in place. Is that correct?
Right. You could do, Mayor and Council, you're kind of describing precisely what we see the governor and the CDPHE do over and over and over again, is they sort of extend them and then they extend them. So certainly you may, if you wanted to choose a date and say we'll revisit it on that date. What I would probably do on that date, if you we're going to talk about maybe extending it, is do something more simple than this, is sort of like an extension ordinance on an emergency basis. So you could take it in bites like that. Yeah.
Okay, I like it. Council, do we have any other comments or concerns before we go into our regular meeting and make a ruling on this?
Carmen, also on that, we could either extend it or we could retract it, right? If the virus gets better, either or.
You bet you.
Mike, if I might make one last point before I go, I would just let you know the most egregious violators of this have already had multiple warnings. We've also issued them a letter of violation with no change in their behavior. So I would suggest that you don't have a period of warning for the most egregious violators, because they've been in violation for months. We've given them more than opportunity. We've tried to have rational discussions with them, only to be told to go away and get the hell out, and fun stuff like that. So I would suggest that you don't give lots of warnings, particularly to the businesses that have been in violation for months and have sort of shooed us away.
Okay, thanks for that, Dr. Ryan.
Are those people in the city of Idaho Springs that you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay, we are out of time on our work session. Thanks, Dr. Ryan, for coming in and giving us an update on how things are moving along and answering the questions of council of some of their concerns about moving forward with this pandemic in the future. And I'll tell council and anybody that's on the meeting right now, Dr. Ryan, since he's been on 6 months ago, has gone way beyond the call, making sure that our community is well informed and helping us get the information for not only us as the city representatives, but the county as well, to make some very tough decisions. When you make decisions to start cutting businesses back to their capacity of what they can have, those are tough decisions, because it does impact not only our personal lives and our personal businesses, but affects our city, because that's what we live on, is people being successful. And then ultimately also the county, they get a sales tax also for everything that we do in this community, sales wise as well. So thanks again, Dr. Ryan. You've been a blessing to our community, and go home and have a good evening with your wife and kids.
I appreciate that. And I just want to let everyone know, this Thursday evening at 6, we are going to have our second town hall meeting. It's at 6 to 7 p.m. It's going to be about 20 minutes of presentation, but then the vast majority of that time is answering questions similar to what we did here tonight, but a lot more charts and graphs and information. So you're more than all welcome. All
right. Okay, council, let's take a few minutes. And John, do we have to sign off and sign back on?
No.
If everybody needs to take a short break, let's meet back, and we'll give you 5 minutes, 7:10.
Hey, John, are you excited about the train?
I'm so excited. I've been working on that project for almost 3 years now, and I'm just really happy we're going to be taking care of it.
No, I remember when I first met you, you talked about the train.
I've been playing on that train since I was probably 4 years old, climbing all over it, and I love that thing. It's one of my most Colorado important landmark things.
But you
So just
remember
having
that
that-
I was the person that got it moved to its current location, right? When I was at NOLA.
Yeah, I think you were telling me about that one day. And were you here the day that they moved it and they moved the track up onto from behind the rock shop, or?
No, I mean, all I remember doing, Jonathan, was getting somehow, because I was at DOLA running the Main Street program. I remember running into somebody that was really, it's a group that was really into trains. And so I said, well, here's the problem we have. I said, we've got this great train, but it's in the middle of the street and people keep on stopping and taking photographs. So, but I'll let you know the rest of the story sometime.
I'd love to hear that. I found a really cool file of transfer papers when it was transferred to New York, to Colorado, to the Colorado and Southern. I've got all the documentation. It originally came with 1,000 ore cars, and I have no idea what happened to those things. But it was like the transfer agreement to the county was like 1909 maybe.
Well, we'll share those notes sometimes.
Jonathan,
Okay.
did you just say 1,000 ore cars?
Yes, sir. I was surprised. I've got I'll show you sometime. The papers are amazing. It was huge. And I don't know what happened to them. It was originally, those were from the Colorado and Southern to the county as well. So I don't know if they auctioned them off or what.
Actually, when those cars were retired, they burned many of them.
Ah.
Most of them, I would say. Very few are left.
I found on eBay a model of the 60. It was a brass model, and it's going for about $4,000.
Yeah.
It's HO scale, but I was just impressed.
That's a small scale for a big price. Wow.
Okay, we are about ready. Who are we waiting on? We're waiting for Andy to get back.
Hi, Andy.
All right. It is 7:10, Monday, November 9th, 2020. This is our regular city council meeting. Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman,
Here.
Scott Pennell,
Here.
Chuck Harmon,
Here.
Bob Boland,
Here.
John Curtis,
Here.
Art Cacavelli,
Here.
Jim Clark.
Here.
All right, please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge the allegiance
to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Play ball.
Thanks, anybody that's out there with us this evening. We have an agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
I would move to approve the agenda for November 9th, 2020 meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
We've got Chuck and Art as a first and second discussion. All right, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Does anybody feel they have a conflict of interest tonight?
Yes, I do. On ordinance first reading, item A, I will recuse myself from that.
Item A. Okay, Bob, thank you very much. Anybody else? All right. We have our minutes. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the October 26th and November 2nd, 2020 meeting.
Second.
Motion and second. That's Scott and Chuck. Discussion?
They were good.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will move to the bills. Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve the bills to November 9th, 2020.
And a second? We got Chuck and Bob. Discussion?
I don't have a question so much about the amount in some of these invoices, but being still fairly new on some of this stuff, and maybe this is not the place to do it, but clarification on why we're spending money on different projects like grant writing. And then there was one here for geological survey, what the result might be of the survey and those kind of questions. It's really not about the amount of money. It's more about
what page and line item?
Okay, I'm on page 5.
Okay.
There's 2 right in a row. Number 21054 and number 1023. One is about the geological survey. And then underneath is grant writing service. I thought we wrote our own grants. So I'm just looking for clarification. And then as far as the survey is concerned, I'm wondering if we have the results of what that survey showed or didn't show.
So the grant writing services, we opted to, with these being trails and COMBA, the Colorado Mountain Bike Association, being really familiar and understanding those words to put in these grants, that when the grant reviewers are looking at it, that they pop. And we felt that was worth having them help us write this grant. And that's for that grant would have been for our Virginia Canyon Mountain Park.
Right. So, we're not talking about a lot of money. That's why I'm just looking for the clarification.
And I can answer the Colorado.
I'm not sure. Just a moment, Barb. I'm going to let Barb explain the geological survey. So, Barb,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, thanks. So Art, even prior to us sort of coming on board as your interim community development planner, Alan had used the Colorado Geological Survey to comment. They're a state agency, but a number of years ago, they became sort of self-funded, so we have to pay them to do things. So they have been reviewing the geotechnical reports that Argo has provided us with, but clearly I don't have that expertise, JVA doesn't have that expertise. So we've used them to review these reports about the geological hazards related to the Argo gondola project. So I think this is their 5th review dating back to 2016.
And then they present that to the staff, and the staff listen, as far as what their findings are. They just share that with the staff.
Yeah, and their findings are, Andy can forward those to you if any of you.
No, I don't need to see them. I'm just looking for procedure.
Yeah.
And
So
what they accomplish.
basically, they have comments. They're very lengthy, and then what we do as staff is forward those comments to the Argo team and say, okay, these are the hazard comments. And that's one of the conditions. As you remember, there were 12 conditions imposed on the Argo gondola project. And one of them was satisfy, the comments from the Colorado Geological Survey.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. Thank you. Then I have one more on page 6, which is on the opposite side of 5. Number 0000024 3022. It says ordinance recording $6,800. That one kind of spiked my curiosity what that's all about.
And I actually had that circle as well, Art.
But I feel I'm in good company.
So what is this ordinance recording? What exactly is that? Barb or Carmen?
Barb, it's an Argo thing.
It's an Argo thing so Diane, this is something that you have to file, DP Media?
No, it was Community Matters that filed that with the Denver Post.
Okay, so that's our planning group. And so is that an expense to the city or is this a reimbursable expense?
It's going to be reimbursed by the Argo.
Okay. Did you hear that?
Thank you.
That's one of those things that gets reimbursed.
Well, that's the one. I love
Good
that word.
question, Art, because I had the same question. Okay, anything else, anybody?
I have a question about something Art brought up. I know he's saying the amount doesn't matter, but to get clarification on that grant writing service, it's not a very big amount, so the administration just makes a decision on that. If it's a larger amount, it would come in front of council, wouldn't it?
Andy has the authority at the administrative level up to, how much is that, Andy? 10,000?
Yes.
Up to 10,000. Yeah, we have a policy that allows Andy or our city administrator to make a decision up to $10,000 without coming to council.
But if it's less than 10,000, Andy can still bring it up in front of council if he thinks it's the best interest to do that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I believe this, when you remember, we've had, I think about 5 grants that have been due over the last month, 4 to 6 weeks. And it was a little bit overwhelming to try to get all of these done. And so we had several grants due for the trails construction. And that's when we updated the council on this, we did mention that we'd like to bring on a grant writer to assist us. As the mayor said, particularly a grant writer who has some expertise through CAMBA and has done these grants before to assist us. So this was really, we do most of our grants in-house. We're very fortunate to have John Kane on board to write a lot of these grants for us. But we just had all these grants due at one time. And we did want to use the expertise of a particular grant writer for the trails grants.
Yeah, and I'm not, I just want clarification. I think it's a no-brainer that you use, the risk is not getting that grant because we didn't spend $675. That just doesn't make good sense. So I think you're making the right decision there.
Okay, any other questions, council? Roll call.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, Diane or John, do we have any unscheduled public comment for tonight?
No, sir.
Okay, we don't have any public comment. All right, at this time, council, we are going to come out of our regular meeting. We are now going to put our liquor license authority hats on, and we are going into a public hearing. This hearing will come to order. This is a public hearing before the City Council of the City of Idaho Springs, acting as the local liquor licensing authority of the City of Idaho Springs concerning the application of Goodfellow Antiques LLC, doing business as the Bee's Knees for a beer and wine license located at 1430 Minor Street in the City of Idaho Springs. This hearing will be conducted pursuant to the laws of the state of Colorado and the Idaho Springs Municipal Code. The purpose of this hearing is to receive evidence from interested parties in order to enable this authority to determine whether the application should be approved or denied. The primary issues are whether the requirements of the neighborhood pertinent to the applications are being met by the existing licenses and whether the inhabitants of the neighborhood desire to have the proposed outlet. Another important issue is the character and general suitability of the applicant to hold a liquor license. The applicant will be expected to present evidence bearing upon all of these issues. Before this hearing commences, the authority determined that the neighborhood pertinent to the application would be all of the area within the city limits. Those persons who will be entitled to the present evidence at this hearing must qualify under state law as interested parties. These persons are defined as applicant, an adult resident or neighborhood, the owner or manager of any business located in the neighborhood, the owner or manager of any business located in the neighborhood. I think that was repeated. The order of this hearing will be as follows. After I've completed these opening remarks, the city clerk will give her administrative report. The chief of police will give his report. Next, the applicant will present their case, meaning that he or she will offer testimony, exhibits, petitions, and any other matters which he or she feels the authority should consider. When the applicant has completed his or her case, other interested parties may present testimony, exhibits, petitions, or other evidence bearing upon the relevant issues. Following this, the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal. The hearing will then be closed and the authority will proceed to make a decision. The authority will deliberate and attempt to render a decision this evening, but it may defer this decision to a later date if necessary. All testimony will be given under oath, which will be administered by our city clerk. Exhibits should be marked by the city clerk and then identified before being offered to the chair for admission into evidence. The chair will rule on the admissibility of all evidence, and his or her ruling will stand unless objected to by a member of the authority during the hearing, in which event the question of admissibility will be decided by a majority of the members present. A record will be kept of the evidence refused or testimony rejected. As witnesses complete their testimony, they should remain in the witness chair so that they may be cross-examined by all other parties, other interested parties, or by members of the authority. So, read any interested party. There's no objection from any part of the city clerk's administrative file on the application will be received in the evidence at this time and made a pertinent part of the record. This hearing for Goodfellow Antiques LLC is now open at 7:25. We will now have the city clerk's administrative report. And then we will hear from the city's attorney's report, police chief report, applicant presentation, and interested parties and questions. With that, we will now hear from our city clerk, Diane.
In accordance with CRS 44-3-311, the notice of public hearing to be held by the Liquor Authority concerning the above referenced application was published in the Clear Creek Current on October 21st, 2020, and is marked Exhibit A, and notice was posted on the premises on October 29th, 2020. The results of the investigation are outlined in my administrative report.
All right, thank you, Diane. We will now hear from our city attorney.
Mayor and council, no legal concerns or objections from my office.
All right, thank you, Carmen. I did not see the police. I didn't see Chief on our meeting tonight. I don't believe there was any concerns from Chief Malanka, so we will go by that. Now we will hear from the applicant. Margaret, please state your name, where you reside, please.
Okay.
And then we'll have Diane, or before, actually, we ought to probably have Diane swear you in.
Okay.
Raise your right hand, please.
Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Right hand.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, if you would state your name and where you reside.
Margaret Smith. I reside part-time at 1430 Minor Street, also 2117 North Grand Avenue in Pueblo, Colorado.
Okay, and state your name, please.
My name again?
Yes.
Okay, Margaret Ives Smith.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Now your presentation. Tell us why you're applying for a liquor license and how you feel this will be a benefit to you and this community.
Okay, well, I didn't prepare anything because I didn't know we just felt that we would like to provide an alternative environment from the existing, breweries that are in town, and that we wanted to incorporate an environment where we could have beer and wine, and also with a unique environment with our antique furniture and the like. And we just felt that there was perhaps a void, an opportunity there to supplement the existing establishments. And antiques in and of themselves is a dying business. So this is our attempt at staying, in business. So that's to benefit us. And we also feel like we can do something kind of cool, offer something, and encourage the locals to frequent our place. So.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to ask any questions, Diane?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now questions from council.
Margaret, will there be an area for people to sit and enjoy the beer and liquor, or is it kind of like they'll drink and consume and kind of have an opportunity to look at your antiques and stuff like that?
Yes, well, the drawings that we provided on our application, yes, to answer your question, our plan is to have small, cozy settings that would be different, and a lot of what we anticipate having it furnished with items that'll be for sale. And we want it to be more boutique-y. I guess that's a good word. More of and we want to incorporate our jazz music, and we've just got a lot of ideas going. So it's not to have a nightclub by any means. And the bar area itself, the original design in the bar, the architect had like 10 feet. And we've said we want to have that smaller. We're going to probably, the actual bar will probably only be about 8 feet. And then the rest will be groupings of chairs, really, and sofas and things of that nature. And that really will hopefully, in what's the right word I'm looking for? Where people sit and have conversations and really comfortable and cozy. That's what we're going for anyway.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of questions on your diagram that you sent.
Yes.
These are two separate areas?
No.
So it's
the whole area from where the residents.
So what we have on our left and what we have on the right, can you, I guess what I'm getting at is, per the diagram, are you not planning on serving any alcohol in any of the area located in that right document, on the right side of your document?
I don't have that in front of me. Let's see.
So you got a furniture plan and you got the remodel floor plan.
Right. The furniture plan is just to give an idea the architect has just given an idea of where there'd be seating.
Okay, so this is actually the same drawing. This is the same thing. Okay, because there's some tables that are made. Second of all, and maybe we should ask Carmen this question. You have a private residency on there.
Mm-hmm.
Should that be part of the area to be able to consume and to store alcohol in? If they have a private residency there, should that also be included as their consumption area and their storage area? Or are you not planning on consuming in that area at all?
Right. No, and go ahead, Margaret. I don't think it is, Mayor. I think they drew the sort of bold line around just the business premises. Right, Margaret?
Okay.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, in answer to that, there will be alcohol probably consumed in the residential area, but not as a part of the business.
So that does not have to be included, Carmen?
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
I was just making sure so we didn't get into any trouble. So.
And the storage, as far as the storage goes, of course, I'm sure we'll be using the basement. I wasn't aware that that would be an issue if we had.
If you're using the basement, it needs to be identified as storage of alcohol.
We'll store it in that storage area.
Okay, well then we've got a storage. We've also identified it. Is that for absolute? For sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
And Margaret, you
Yes.
know, if you want to store alcohol in your basement and you don't get that approved now, you'll have to bring it back to this group and do a modification on your premises, and that starts costing you money to do that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we
I mean,
need
because
to determine if you're going to store alcohol in the basement of any sort. We need to include that into your diagram.
okay, well, I'm glad that you brought this up then, because that hasn't come up in talking with the architect or anything like that, and as an issue. We do have a designated storage area within the boundaries that we've provided, and we may then, what we'll probably have to do is expand that
if need be.
if need be.
Well, if you expand that by 1 foot, you have to come back to council, back to the licensing authority, and it has to be a modification of premises. We don't.
That area is big enough.
That
well,
area,
okay, well, wait a minute, let me get this straight. None of this has been, like, as far as, okay, the drawing that I've submitted that has the storage in it, that's a preliminary drawing. I mean, if it's still within that, you mean I can't move those walls out if I want to extend the storage?
not without a modification of premises.
Well, you don't even have any exact dimensions on that, do you?
No, how could they?
Well, the drawing has dimensions.
There's no dimensions on these drawings.
That's why I'm trying to say those aren't the finalized architectural drawings, because we're going back and forth, and now the engineers are finishing up their drawings for submittal for the permit to do the modifications in the building. So I'm kind of confused on that.
So I'm going to defer this to our legal because from my understanding, these things should be measured out and have dimensions on them. And I didn't notice that. So we know exactly. So the state and the local government knows where you're storing alcohol and what size area that is.
Okay, well, actually, the architectural drawing does have dimensions on it. I'm not sure what you're looking at, but we just designated. I'm sorry.
This is what we're looking at right here, Margaret.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking at, and there's no dimensions of the area, the storage area. And correct me if I'm wrong, Carmen.
That's excuse me a minute.
Kind of going by my future dealings with my own and others, modifications and approvals. Carmen?
Hold on a moment, please. Let me remodel architect. Okay.
So Margaret, what I'm getting at is the authority can't approve something unless we know exactly how the layout is. Because what we're approving, and then you go change it in some way with your architect, then we've approved something that you haven't presented to council.
Well, the remodel floor plan, the middle drawing has the dimensions on it. It may be hard to see on an 8.5 by 11.
Okay, yeah, now I see them on that other side.
Do you
But
see?
are you telling us that your architects are going to come in and change and move walls and things like that?
Well, wait a minute. Let me come back.
Because what we're approving is this.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
We
Let me come
approve
back
this-
to you.
Okay.
I'm not. All right. Let me. Where am I? How did I? Why aren't I on here? Boop. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe that. Nope. Ay. I've gotten disconnected.
You know, it's interesting, Mayor. I think I'm looking at the page that has the two side-by-sides of a furniture plan and the remodel floor plan, and it does look like dimensions are provided there.
I do see
They
that now.
are. They are.
I do see that now.
Okay.
Right.
My concern is you changing the floor plan.
Right. Right.
You know, if you presented the council this floor plan, if you come in and move one wall 10 inches, then that means what you presented to council for approval tonight is null and void now. You've changed the floor plan of your establishment.
Well, I guess that I thought it was just supposed to be a rendering of. I thought that the actual finalization was when we go to get approval to do the remodel. There are some questions about different things that we expect that might change when we go go through that whole, like when Safe Built reviews it, there might be things that are going to have to be changed. I mean, it's
So
almost like
Anna,
putting the cart before the horse, because we haven't gone through that process. So, I mean,
So
we're not
what-
talking about anything drastic, but I mean,
Any
we don't
modi-
know what, huh? I'm sorry.
Any modification will have to go to the state and back to the city for back to the licensing, the local licensing authority. With any change, when you change the premises or decide to store something in the basement, the premises have to be modified. So that's why we want to make sure that what we're approving is exactly what you're, and like you said, we may be putting the cart before the horse. Maybe the architect needs to come in and make sure where everything's going and then bring it back to council for approval.
It's still, but, okay.
Go ahead,
It
Margaret.
still wouldn't, well, see, the thing of it is here, Mike, is that we don't know what's going to happen when we go through the permitting process. There's a lot of, so nothing is finalized.
Your
See,
floor
'cause
plan
you've gotta
that you
get-
submit for
pardon?
your permit and your floor plan that you submit to the local liquor licensing authority has to be accurate. We can't approve something and you change it. Does that make sense? It has nothing to do with the building department, nothing to do with, this has to do with your premises. This is how it's going to be. This is where we're going to serve alcohol. This is where we're going to store alcohol. We can't, I'm trying to save you some money, Margaret. If we
I
find
get
out
you.
that if you go through this and then you do your modification and then we have somebody walk in there and say, whoa, wait a minute. That's not what she had on this piece of paper. She can't be doing this. Then we have to tell you, okay, now you got to resubmit to the state, come back to us and do
My
a
gosh.
modification of the premises which costs you money and time. We want to
Right.
make sure that we get this approved with the current and the correct. Now, if you're wanting to start serving alcohol tomorrow, and that's your desire, then we can go ahead and get ruling from council, from the local licensing authority tonight. But just keep in mind, if you submit something to the city that's going to change that floor plan, the first thing that's going to pop up is, wait a minute, if she's rearranging and modifying the floor plan at her establishment, then she has to come back to council and the state and get approval for that.
See now,
Mayor, Mayor and Council, if I might, I'm sorry, Margaret, but one point for you to consider on all this point, and maybe for you as well, Margaret, that if you note in the clerk's report on this, staff report, as we well know, recently the council changed the city's laws in terms of distance requirements, right? So that this beer and wine license could be considered in this location. That ordinance is noted in the city clerk's staff report, ordinance number 14.
right, not till December 4th.
Yeah, becomes effective
Right.
about a month from now. So
Right.
there is maybe a month that Margaret and her business partner could nail down the dimensions and come back to you. We could do that at the next meeting. And I'm glad this is coming up now, because if the applicant believes that's something that they can come back at the next meeting, we're in this public hearing that's been noticed, we can, you as a council, if applicant wants to do this, announce in this process a new date, like the next meeting at which you'll consider this, and we as staff and the applicant wouldn't have to go through noticing and such again, if that's where we're headed, Mayor.
And I did forget about us modifying our
Right.
code, and that's about a 90-day process. So you really couldn't go start serving alcohol tomorrow.
Right, I already knew that. I realized that.
And I forgot about us changing that. So that does give you some time to get your architect, get a true layout of what you're proposing, get it to Diane, so that we can make sure that we're doing it. Like I said, Marty, this is not a stalling from you getting it. We just want to make sure.
No, I realize
that you have your ducks in a row.
Realize
You're not
that.
going to have to spend extra money and extra
Right.
time. because,
Costly and time, more time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like I see, and I thought that the overall, like where Diane had us dark in the area, the overall area where the business will transpire. I thought that was it. You know, that's not going to change. That part isn't going to change at all.
Right. But if you change the size of if you change, and I would do it all at one time, if you're planning at 15 years from now to store alcohol in the basement, I would draw a picture of your
Well, I
basement.
already decided against that.
Why is that?
Well, because of, like you said, the modifications and the other
Well,
things.
if you're going to have to modify already, I would go ahead and, whether you ever use it or not, Margaret, you should include it. So you don't have to come back and modify it. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it's just,
I'm just
I'll
trying
have to
I'm just
think
trying
on
to help
that.
you,
Yeah.
Because after you get your license and all of a sudden you come back to Diane and say, Diane, I got to be able to store wine in the basement.
Yeah.
You have to come and do a modification of your premises, and it costs you money and time to do that. So I would suggest that when you resubmit after your architect, I would just draw a picture of your basement and draw a circle around it and say, I could store or potentially serve down there at some point, just to cover your backside and make sure that it's taken care of.
Okay.
All right.
And I appreciate that I appreciate that perspective and input from you. I do. I'm just, what's haunting me though, and I don't, is what's gonna perhaps have to be modified if the Safe Built comes back and says, well, you got to do this. That's what I'm concerned about. And then regardless
That's why I don't think it would be appropriate for this authority to approve that tonight. Because I'm afraid that we're approving something that you're going to change and you're going to have to come back to us and have it modified and cost you money.
So can we apply for, so I guess this is, I don't know if this, you guys, you can answer this, or you should be, maybe. We should apply for the permit, I mean, with the drawings, to go through that process before we come back and do this?
That way that if you're going to make a modification to your premises, I would submit that to the city, get Safe Built to approve it. Once they've approved that, then you can come back in, because now we have a diagram of what the layout's going to be.
Okay.
Okay, you see, now that's some
Does that make
failure
sense?
I did, yeah. I thought we had to do that. Well, of course, the other side of it was we didn't want to do any of it unless we were going to get the go ahead. And we got through that hurdle with when you voted to enact that ordinance, changing the wording and all of that. So, okay, that's okay. So now I'm clear. That's what we need to already go through that to get all those things sorted out in the permitting process and approval, so that then they can finalize the architectural rendering of the building.
And then you know exactly where your storage is going to be. You know exactly where anywhere that you're going to serve or put alcohol is already approved by the city through Safe Built, that you're going to go through it. Then you just redraw it, bring it back to us. And, and then it'll be an easy process.
I mean, because as we speak, I had an hour and a half meeting online with the architect and the engineer last Tuesday, and we've already got some changes that are going to be incorporated. So I didn't realize one had, okay. I guess we're clear. Clear as mud.
And that's the whole thing. When you submit a drawing to us, this is where we're expected. If we had enforcement, we walk in there and say, okay, we've got this piece of paper. This is your storage, Margaret. Oh, wait a minute. It says it's 8 foot by 10 foot.
Yeah.
But it's now 12 foot by 14 foot. Wait a minute. You see what I'm saying? So we just want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row.
Okay.
That the council's not, or
So we haven't, there's no harm, no foul right now, right?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Before you could even start serving, still 60 days out anyway. So you have plenty of time to work with.
Not really. Not if December 4th, we're around the corner.
December 4th?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
okay.
So yeah, and all you have to do is.
Okay. Can I then get back with Diane and let her know when I think that? Well, we'll know because we got to go through the building code and all of that. The Safe Built. So I'm not prepared then to say when we're going to be ready for the next for it. Okay. It may not. It most probably won't be in. It'll probably be after the 4th of December. So.
And the thing about the liquor authority, once we approve it, Diane, how long is it before we have to wait for the state license to get back?
Yes, sir.
Wait for the state license to get back, and then you're good to go.
Okay, but about how long does that usually take?
Well, before it could be, a while, but we've been very fortunate. And I'm hoping that with the COVID and all the modifications, the state liquor authority has been working really well with all the businesses. So I would hope that they would return pretty quick. Can't promise about the state.
We've got, I mean, it's going to be a challenge anyway, getting the modifications done as far as getting the trades we need and getting the quotes and all of that. So I'm sure it's going to work out okay. And so, okay, this is a learning experience, but I don't, I don't know that I'd be going through it again after this, but anyhow, I appreciate everybody's time.
Yeah, absolutely. We're here to help you get this thing going without any additional cost or additional time.
I really appreciate that. And now it's so we know what the priority is. And okay. All right. Well,
All
thank
right.
you for your time, everybody.
Okay.
And that maybe then when we get back to it, then it'll go a lot faster.
Okay.
And just
Okay.
as a note to the applicant, Mayor, the last anticipated meeting of the year is December 14th.
Okay. All
We'll be
right.
ready by then.
Well, December 14th.
For the drawings and everything?
Well,
That's the last
Okay.
meeting of the year.
yes. Okay. That's fine. Okay. And we don't have to have the work completed to come back, right?
Nope.
We just have to have
Have
the
what we're doing.
drawings
Yeah.
finalized. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you. And thank you, Diane and everyone. Let's
All right,
all try to
thanks,
get
Margaret.
this working
We
together
will.
on this COVID so
We're,
we
we're
can
on
open. We may
we're on the right path. We just want to
Okay.
make sure that
Yeah.
we cross the finish line in a good fashion, that we don't have any setbacks on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm out of
Um,
here.
So what I believe we need to do
Oh.
now, this hearing for Goodfellow Antiques LLC is now closed at 7:53. And correct me if I'm wrong, Carmen, but we probably need to have a motion to table this, right?
Yes, sir. And if you wish to eliminate the need to renotice, as council knows, you need to pick a date certain, as the clerk advised. Maybe the 14th is a realistic date. Margaret and an applicant, rest assured, if that works, great. Come on in the 14th. If that does not, what council could do is set it over again to a date certain again. So that's not a problem if you need a little more time. So, Mayor, I think a motion to continue this hearing to the 14th is what you're looking for.
Do I have a
Okay.
motion, please?
I would move that we have the application for the beer and wine license for the Goodfellow Antiques LLC doing business as Bee's Knees. I would move that we table this to December 14th.
Do I have a second?
I second.
So we got Chuck and Art. Discussion, last chance for discussion. Roll call, please.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you again, Margaret.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, we are going to move down to our ordinance first readings. A and
I'll
B.
recuse myself at this point.
Hang on a second, Bob.
Okay, oh, sorry.
Oh, wait a minute. A. Okay, yes, A. You need to go. Sorry,
Okay.
Bob.
Jen will monitor so she can holler at me when you're done.
All right.
Hello.
Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve ordinance number 18, series 2020, an ordinance conditionally vacating a portion of Riverside Drive adjacent to lots 1 through 4 of the Mighty Argo Mill minor subdivision.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
We've got Chuck and Scott this time. Discussion.
Why are we doing this? I mean, is it going to interfere with the right of way of Riverside at all, or do we have any sewer or water in there?
Councilor Curtis, we, as you know, when was it? The last regular meeting approved the minor subdivision plat for the lower landing area of the gondola project in Argo. This is the Riverside Drive area by the bottom, at the bottom landing area, next to where a parking structure is contemplated. And as a part of that minor subdivision plat, Mayor and Council, they dedicated, essentially sort of following where Riverside is right now, they dedicated a public access and utility easement to the public use. And the minor subdivision plat I don't expect you to remember this like we as staff do, because we've been dealing with this every day. But if you remember, there was a note on the minor subdivision plat that essentially said this access easement, this utility and access easement where Riverside is sort of a placeholder, a temporary easement for continued access and utilities, to your point, John, while the development sort of continues along, and both the owner and the city expect and promise that Riverside Drive, as you are being requested to vacate right now, will be rededicated as Riverside Drive in the future when the precise boundaries of everything associated with the development sort of shake out. That's why you'll see, Mayor and Council, a condition in this ordinance on page 2, which is atypical of a vacation ordinance. But you'll see that there is a recommended condition, and Argo is aware of this, and there are no qualms, and I'm going to speak for them, but this is an ordinance, not a quasi-judicial hearing. So there is a condition to which Argo has agreed, and they're well aware that they're obligated to rededicate Riverside Drive in this area no later than essentially 3 years from now, beginning of 2024. So until that time, Councilor Curtis and the rest of council, we as a city have, through the minor subdivision plat, the guarantee of continued use of that street for both access and utility purposes because of the easement that's now memorialized on the already approved subdivision plat.
Yeah, and John, if I can add to that, one of the things that was really confusing about where Riverside Drive is or is not, and John Bordoni knows this, is that what you drive on is not necessarily the public right-of-way that you drive on, because Riverside Drive actually goes north into the Argo property. The other issue is that we don't know where that the Greenway Trail needs to be. So we sort of agreed with Argo, we still need to use Riverside Drive, but where it eventually ends up, and more importantly, how wide it needs to be, and what we need for utility easements will be decided at that next phase, because as you remember, to the east of the gondola, their planned development envisions a lot more stuff.
Does that answer your question, Councilman Curtis?
Yeah, so what's the staff's recommendation?
Approval, Councilor Curtis, of this vacation for a couple reasons. One, we've reserved to the city sort of the continuing uses that we already have of the right-of-way in a different location, as Barb just noted. And two, that there's an express condition that it be rededicated an actual reality of where it needs to be in the future. So staff recommends approval, Councilor.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland, John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We need to move to B under ordinance first reading. I believe Bob can come back in now.
Okey doke, I'll get him.
Thank you. And just to reiterate with the council, remember, these are first readings. There will be an opportunity during second reading over the next month of changes and other questions. So this is not a final, this is just first reading on these. So we still have some time to look at things and come up with some questions for our next reading. Okay, Bob's back. We're at B on our ordinance first reading. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve ordinance number 19, series 2020, an ordinance amending section 21 through 33 of chapter 21 land development regulations of the Idaho Springs Municipal Code concerning short-term rentals.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Mayor and council, if I might sort of piggyback on what the mayor just said, because this short-term rental ordinance does amend chapter 21 of the city's code, the city's LDR, land development regulations. Because of that, it requires a public hearing. That, as usual, happens on second reading. My associate, Nina Williams, has been working with Planning Commission a lot on this draft ordinance. I am happy to have Ms. Williams attend the second reading and public hearing on this ordinance, as she's been way more involved with the discussions with Planning Commission than I. I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have tonight, but again, to just sort of echo the mayor's point, you will have probably a more robust discussion of this at public hearing on second reading. Hey, Diane, when is that scheduled for, by the way?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm guessing it's December 14th.
Okay.
I'll let you know for sure tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, we have five Mondays this month. Yep. Holy cow. Okay, sorry. That's a while.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion from council?
So on the,
go ahead, John.
On the off-street parking, you're gonna have to show how many rooms they're gonna rent or people, and then they'll develop the parking plan from that, or how's that gonna work?
Yep, the parking plan provisions, the change that is in the code in terms of what's different now or updated now as compared to what's already existing, Councilor Curtis, is that a delineated off-street parking plan has to be provided, including if you, as we've encountered as staff, if you are going to use some neighboring property, right, or some other third-party premises besides your own, you'll have to provide some proof of authorization, right, that your neighbor says that's okay. So that's the sort of addition that's proposed under this ordinance, is not only a parking plan of off-street parking that's adequate, but that if you're using property that's not your own, some written proof of the agreement with that other property.
So does this address public street parking then?
No, sir.
So
I mean, you know, anybody can use public street parking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ostensibly, but as a part, if you want an STR license, additionally on top of whatever might be available on the street, if anything, you must show us off-street parking as well. It's an attempt to sort of make the property owner bear that burden of the impacts of the STR, not publicly on the street.
Right. Well, that's a big concern in other areas.
Yep.
They come in and just take over street parking.
The residential permitted area is off limits for STR usage. They would have to park in public parking that's paid parking. STRs are forbidden from using you can't get a permit for a short-term rental to park in the residential permitted area. That would be the one exclusion there.
But are they allowed to park in a residential area on the street?
If it's
not
not
in that area?
permitted. Only if it's not permitted. So the permitted area goes essentially from 9th Avenue to 17th Avenue for all intents and purposes, and then it goes down Minor Street towards Safeway. That area, you have to be a resident of the city to park, but any resident of the city can park there. Other areas of the city, there is not that restriction on parking currently.
I thought they had to have, that the parking was only allowed on their property for guests.
Yeah, so let
That
me
was
just-
the previous situation.
Yeah.
And we're eliminating that so they can park on a street.
No.
That's not in that area.
No. This, and the planning commission, I guess, had started this well before we came on board, but it specifically says off-street parking.
Right.
You need an off-street parking plan.
Right.
So if I was going to do an STR, I would have to show that, okay, I have these 2 extra spaces on my lot. And then to get over the loophole where Art, I decided to use 2 spaces on your lot without talking to you about it, that you need proof that you're approving of my use of your parking space.
Yeah, no, I guess that's not what I'm referencing. I was referencing before that I thought that the guest had to be, just park on the property that was, in question. They couldn't park on the street.
That's correct. The problem is we only regulate residential parking in one small area or zone. So if they wanted to, for instance, park on Colorado Boulevard on the east end of town where there's no restrictions, they would just have to abide by the law there. So there's 3-hour parking there, no overnight parking. Those laws would have to be followed, but there's no residential permit in that area.
Right. Okay. And how about if the guest shows up with a camper or a trailer? I thought I read somewhere where that was not allowed for them to park on the street with extended vehicles. I don't have it right in front of me. Did I misread that, Jonathan?
I believe that, Barb, is that correct?
I
Sorry,
did.
but-
but I'm
sorry,
looking for it.
What? Was that question to me? I'm sorry, John.
If guests have an oversized camper and they want to park it outside, I don't think there'd be any restriction on an off-street parking lot, but they wouldn't be able to park it on public property, I don't believe. I'm not positive though.
Well,
I guess it would depend on where it was.
oh yeah, oversized vehicle parking would be, subject to, I think, the same requirements as anyone in terms of how long it can be on the street, and those kinds of rules that we already have in place.
Yeah. By our ordinance, it can only be parked on the street for 72 hours, and anybody can park an RV or camper on their private property, but we need to remember it can't be inhabited for more than 14 days in a year.
So I guess the answer to the question they would not be able to haul a trailer in and park on the street in front of the house.
Okay,
Well,
that's what.
Sorry, I see what you're maybe getting to, Councilor Cacavelli. I don't think there are page numbers on this ordinance, but the ordinance specifically provides that RVs, trailers, and campers are not eligible to get an STR license. Maybe that's what you were remembering reading.
Okay, maybe I missed. Okay, all right, I get you. And how do we audit the fact that the person or persons are paying correct sales tax, that they're reporting all their actual rentals to us?
We don't.
We don't. So it's we don't. So
The
it's just like,
girl honor system, like all taxpayers.
really.
On the sales tax report from the state, it comes under one company like Airbnb or VRBO. So
Okay.
they're not differentiated.
And we can't ask them for a specific report for our area.
Oh, we do. And we absolutely at the time.
Well, I mean,
of-
well, let me rephrase that, by property.
Yes.
So someone says they've had 6 rentals in a month. We can verify whether they did or didn't. We can't, right? honor system. Okay.
Well, what are you asking? Are you asking that?
I'm asking how we substantiate that we're getting the money due to us.
We require every license holder to file a report reporting what their licensing and renting activity is.
Right. So they can tell us whatever they want.
Exactly. I can file my taxes and say whatever I want, but I mean, it.
Yeah, but you're under federal law by that and fraudulent, circumstances, and we'll visit you in jail. But under this circumstances, it's completely the honor system. Okay.
It is, and we're absolutely welcome if you have some ideas how to police, people's homes. But there's some fine lines we have to tread there.
We just put a drone over all the people that are renting homes and just let that drone sit there.
Councilman, you
I
also
like
have,
that. They're designing drones that look like birds now, so we'd be less susceptible.
Okay, all right.
Councilman, I watch this online. I can guesstimate how often they are rented. The problem is that they have First Amendment rights to advertise, essentially. And so we can't for sure say that they're not just advertising that they're booked or that they're home, but there are services there's some municipal softwares that you can use that do a better job because they can see more data. And that would be something we could consider funding potentially out of maybe business licenses for this program or something like that, but it's kind of expensive. So that's why
I was going to say that probably wouldn't be worth it. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm a cynical person, and this is,
no.
Want to make sure we get all our money.
Hey,
that's what we're here for, to ask those questions.
Yes. And you're identifying exactly what one of the many challenges on these STRs is, Councilor Cacavelli. I appreciate you raising the issue because it's incredibly difficult for the city to wrap their arms around this, and you're hitting the nail on the head.
All right. Well, thank you guys for putting up with me again.
And again, Art, this is just first reading, so gather up any other questions. We've got a month to look at this and really, I know we only get our packets on Friday, but we've got a whole month before we bring this back to council for the second reading. So I encourage any questions to jot them down so we can discuss that during discussion time.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Carmen.
Councilman Cacavelli. All right. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right. We will move to our first reading under C. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve ordinance number 20, series 2020, an ordinance intended to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19, in the city by requiring face coverings at certain locations, prohibiting large gatherings, and requiring businesses to post signage to comply with all applicable public health orders, and declaring an emergency.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion is second. All right, discussion. Is there something that we didn't talk about in our work session that we need to clarify before we take a vote on this?
Well, we need to pick a date. We need to do that.
I would suggest further out than we need, because Scott, I thought you were the one that brought this up. We can always, end it early.
Right.
So maybe we should set, do we want to set through the 1st of February?
Sure.
And Mayor and Council, just so I'm clear and you're clear, the beginning date being Friday to mirror the county, or tomorrow, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to. Yeah. Well, we could actually just do this tomorrow. It's here or there. It's not going to make any difference.
Okay.
So, do you want to modify your motion to be in effect by tomorrow?
I would like to move that the ordinance go into effect Tuesday, November the 10th through February 1st of 2021.
Do I have a second?
A second. Yeah, I'm not sure who else.
Bob, second. Okay.
So is it my understanding this just needs one reading? We're not going to have a second reading. It just requires one reading.
This is an emergency ordinance. With the public health order, I felt, and staff felt that it was important to get this before council and get into place.
So my opinion of this too is that we should be providing some kind of notification to businesses that we're going to be doing this if this passes.
Well, the county health is already doing this. So if it's the desire of council to notify everybody, we've already gotten businesses that have been cited here in Idaho Springs from the county. So the order is already in place. It's just the local enforcement is the only difference here.
So it's something like the Facebook page, Idaho Springs Facebook page.
Yeah, we'll just put it out.
Yeah, it's nothing that's going to cost the city a bunch of money, but I think we should make an effort.
Well, that way people know, citizens know, businesses know.
So what would be the desire of council of a date to start this? Like I said, my thought on this is what we're doing is already in place at a county level. What we're going to do is we're going to locally enforce it. And this gives us that. So tomorrow, Dr. Ryan could walk into Wildfire Restaurant and say, you're not complying, and we're going to tell you, you got 2 days to get in compliance. We're going to come back and check. So it's already in place at the county. And it doesn't really matter to me. I just think that sooner that, and I'm not expecting that our guys are going to go out there and just start, knocking on people's door, walking into people's businesses and just harass them. I firmly believe that a lot of this is going to be a complaint based, where somebody goes somewhere and sends me an email, whether it's a visitor or a local, that I went somewhere and nobody had masks on and it's a very dangerous situation. It doesn't matter. I don't think it's going to affect, we're only talking 4 days difference. It's up to council.
And
do
Mike,
we want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. We are receiving some complaints now that the public is active in that arena, I believe.
We're seeing some, I try to stay off of Facebook. John Kane, have you been seeing things on Facebook or on our website or our Facebook page saying something that they feel people aren't complying?
Yes, there's been a pretty robust conversation on both sides on that conversation. But yeah, we have received those comments and complaints.
I absolutely believe it's going to be complaint driven. I don't think our police officers have the time to be going around to all these businesses and checking on this. They've got a lot of other concerns, but also Zach is also ordinance of this. Is that right?
Yeah. The truth is though, we go into many of these businesses ourselves. So it wouldn't be overly burdensome. But there's places we're definitely going to check more frequently. Bars, for instance, and of course Zach does have the authority and has already been tasked with making spot checks. We have a worksheet and a plan. So I think we can pull it off.
So Mayor, I think your Councilor Herman's motion, which was seconded, was that the effectiveness be Tuesday, November 10 is what I wrote down. So I think you've already got that in there.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
And then I don't know if it's for council to decide, but it's a $2,600 fine. Is that first offense?
It's up to, up to 2,600. It's not our code says up to $2,650 or whatever it is. It's not $2,600 you're going to get hit with. It's up to.
Right.
And I think that, that should be they get cited into Muni court, and the rate and the amount of time it takes them to get in compliance, I think would be a basis on types of fines. I'm not sure that we've even talked to our, and I don't believe we have. Andy, have you talked to our prosecuting attorney?
No, but I will notify him tomorrow.
Okay.
And the judge does set the fine.
I'm sorry, say that again, Diane?
The judge does set the fine.
So that would be up to our judge to set the fine on that, on the fine on that.
Yes, sir.
And is it the business, the only one that can be fined? I mean, like in the liquor industry, I know that the employee can be fined as well as the business can. So is it, how much are we basing that this is the person's responsibility to wear a mask as well as the employer?
Right. So everybody understands, we're not going to go into a business and write a ticket. Everybody's going to get a warning. We're going to notify the proprietor of the business. If it's a chain, the national. So they get a warning. They get a warning first. The second offense, they'll get a summons. And once we get into, in court, the judge can fine up to $2,600, but we're not seeking that. Diane brought up a really good point. We don't want to defer judgment. We want to fine, but it can be a symbolic fine the first time. That'll send a message, because the one thing we don't is we don't want to put off proprietors of businesses, but we want to hold them accountable. And maybe a little hard love or tough love is that this is a real thing. People are going to be held accountable. So if it were a bar or a restaurant or a shop, and we got to the point where the warnings didn't work, we would probably summons the violator and the proprietor of the business.
And ultimately, Mayor and Council, you'll note that the ordinance provides that what's really impactful and meaningful to a business is its license and its ability to conduct business. So the ordinance does provide that a violation of the business requirements in this ordinance can be addressed by you as the licensing authority. And you may take adverse action against the license for failure to comply, much like a liquor license, to your point, Councilor Pennell.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for that explanation. I think you hit it on the head that we want to just get this point across, not to crucify everybody.
Additionally, Mayor and Council, and I'm sorry, one more thing on penalties. These are non-criminal offenses, again, to sort of underscore that point. Nobody's going to jail for a violation of this. That's not our goal. That's not your goal as a council, is to lock people up for this, really. So jail is not on the table. It's really voluntary compliance, what we're looking for.
Yeah, and I was just looking at worst case, they can be fined up to that 2,600. So they have the authority to do that. They also have the authority, I think the second offense says that they can take their business license away.
Yeah.
Will the county health be notified of any?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, county health department will be notified.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. And I'm glad that we are all consistent on this and everybody voted yes, because we did need with this emergency ordinance supermajority vote, which would have meant 6 council representatives would have had to vote yes. So I'm glad that we're all in agreement on that, and we're very concerned and want to make sure that we are handling our public health in our community the best way we can. All right, let's move on to ordinance second reading and public hearings. I'm not sure why we have staff report first. Is there something we need to do staff report before we go into the public hearing?
No, Mayor.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. This hearing we've got ordinance number 16, which requires a public hearing. So this hearing will come to order. There are 2 public hearings before the City Council of the City of Idaho Springs. The first is ordinance number 16, series 2020, an ordinance annexing to the City of Idaho Springs approximately 9.33 acres of property in Clear Creek County, Colorado, known as portions of the Golden Egg Placer mining claim, U.S. Survey number 13335, to the city of Idaho Springs to be known as the Cabins Annexation numbers 1, 2, and 3 to the city of Idaho Springs. And there will be also ordinance number 17, series 2020, and ordinance rezoning approximately 9.33 acres of property known as the Cabins Annexation numbers 1, 2, and 3 to the city of Idaho Springs to the commercial interchange C3 zone district. The order of these hearings will be as follows. Staff introduction testimony, then the applicant will be sworn in by the city clerk, and then we'll have public testimony. The way that we'll conduct this is we will open and close ordinance number 16 and public hearing number 16, and then we will go back in for the second hearing. So at this time, the first hearing is now declared open. It is 8:28. May I please hear staff testimony?
Yes, you guys accepted the annexation petition about a month ago. This is a small piece of property that is next to the Blackstone Rivers Ranch. It has 11 historic cabins that were built in a sort of turn of the century. There's also one 5-unit apartment building. There is currently sewer that's being put in within the annexation agreement. Carmen will address how we get some of the cabins back onto municipal water. We got 3 referral comments. One was from the county, and Fred's only concern was, did the applicant know that they were in the floodplain? And yes, the applicant knows that. We did get a referral comment from CDOT, and I had to call Marilyn back, and they were just concerned about whether the cabins would need an access permit, but because there's no change in use at this point in time, she agreed, we agreed that that was not necessary. And then we got something from Excel, which was their sort of typical, we service this area, we have easements, let us know if you annex the property. So, and I can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Now we will, the applicant, Diane will swear the applicant in, and we will hear from them.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Yes, we do.
All right, welcome Zuri and Rachel. We want to hear from you.
Great. So as Barb mentioned, it's a small property along 103, a series of historic cabins along the creek. They are on antiquated septic systems, which have all been grandfathered in, thankfully, but we are stewards of the land. And so when we first purchased the property, it was important to transition them to be on city sewer service. That is kind of what prompted the annexation initially, because we can do everything we want with them. Currently in the county, we have short-term rental permits for some of them, long-term tenants in the others. But really, kind of the sewer connections drove this project. So we will be connecting all of the cabins to city sewer if the annexation is approved, and terminating all the old antiquated septic systems. Everything we're planning to do with the property and are asking you to approve is in line with the comp plan, and all of kind of the plans that Idaho Springs has for the 103 corridor, really supporting the visitor experience, tourism. We plan to operate the business in a responsible and professional manner, just as we do Blackstone Rivers Ranch. It will add a lot to our business at Blackstone Rivers Ranch, add a lot to the tax base, a lot to the community, and offer one more lodging solution. Hopefully down the road, COVID has changed a lot for us, but down the road, we're hoping to be able to potentially add more little cabins. As Barb mentioned, we are in the floodplain, so we would have to be very careful of what areas of the property we add them in. But we just want to really create another amazing experience for guests coming into the city and county, and support our other business as well.
All right. Thank you, Rachel and Zuri. We are down. Diane, do we have any public that would like to make comments?
No, sir.
Okay. I would like to ask the applicant something. You talked about turning these in because you're using these as short-term rentals now through the county. You are aware that we have a limited amount of licenses that we provide for our community, and there may be a chance that there might not be a license.
Well,
Yeah.
they're trying to rezone though, Mike.
Yes,
they're trying
correct.
to rezone it.
Yeah, so Mike, this came up at Planning Commission. So because they have a centralized place where you will go to rent one of these lodges, and it's not one unit.
Okay.
It falls, so the C3 zoning allows lodging, hotel, motel, and campground.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize for not mentioning that. The goal with the rezone is that we will, once in the city, legally operate as hotel motel. And we have a formal office, especially due to COVID. Guests will have the option whether they check in with us at the office or have a touch-free check-in, but we will have the office available if they would prefer that way.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
And you're trying to get on city water also. It says you're getting city sewer, but the water's trying to be worked out also.
Yeah, we currently, there is one cabin and the 5-unit apartment building that are still on well. Every other cabin on property was transitioned to city water years ago by the previous owners. So, and I'm not really sure why they didn't transition them all at the same time, but there's one cabin remaining, and then the 5-unit apartment building is still on a common well. So that's part of this process as well, as to get those on city water.
And I'm sure that all the tap fees apply to all this, and that brings in city money too, those tap fees.
Yeah, I'm interested on if the units are in the county right now, when and how did they tie into city water? And did they pay tap fees way back then? That's kind of interesting that we should take a look at to see how the previous owners did that. I have no idea. It's way before me. Okay, any other questions for the applicant, council?
I'm just curious. So you said you had some long-term rentals. They will be terminated at a given point?
We haven't terminated any, except we unfortunately did have to evict last year one long-term renter because he stopped paying rent and communicating. He actually moved out before we had to go through that process. But we have been just letting all of the tenants stay as long as they want. And then when they choose to move out, we've been transitioning them.
Okay.
So, I mean, yes, we could with all of them now, but we have chosen not to.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Last chance, council, for questions to the applicant. Hearing none, this hearing is now closed. It is 8:36. And now we'll go to council discussion. The thoughts or discussion, council, that you would like to lay on the table? With none, do I have a motion?
I would move that we approve ordinance number 16. Series 2020, an ordinance annexing to the city of Idaho Springs approximately 9.33 acres of property in Clear Creek County, Colorado, known as portion of the Golden Egg Placer Mining Claim U.S. Survey number 1335 to the city of Idaho Springs known as the cabin annexation numbers 1, 2, and 3 to the city of Idaho Springs.
I second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. With none, roll call, please, Diane.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Now we will move into our public hearing for ordinance number 17. The second public hearing is now declared open. It is 8:38. Again, we will hear staff testimony, and then we'll hear from the applicant and then the public. Diane or staff, please.
So the rezoning that works best for this property is to rezone it to C3. That is the exact same zoning as the Blackstone Rivers Ranch. So we're not doing any sort of spot zoning. And again, in discussing this with the applicant, this allows a mix of uses, including, they could have a restaurant up there or whatever. So again, this, per the comp plan, this part of the world is really looked upon as a place to promote tourism. And so the C3 zoning gives you a wide range of non-residential uses. And I think the big thing, as you pointed out, Mike, is that yes, it allows lodging as well as campgrounds.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody, Diane, from the public that would like to ask to comment?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any questions that the council would like to ask the applicant? Oh, wait a minute. Applicant, you're up again with your testimony, and you've already been sworn in, so we won't have to do that again.
I have nothing further to add unless there are questions or clarifications.
Council, do we have any questions?
Rachel,
Jim?
Hey guys.
Hello.
Rachel and Zuri, do you guys have, since you're going to be, well, tentatively zone C3, do you guys have any intentions of actual campground, RV or otherwise, or even, a spot for travelers with RVs to like dump and fill?
We do not. We have submitted our complete sewer plan to John Bordoni many months ago. And in that plan, there was nothing provided for that. Not that we're against it. It's just not our vision for this property. We do want people who rent the cabins to have the option to pitch a tent if they want. We've gotten a lot of requests from people who have booked the cabins to date. If we mind if they pitch a tent for the kids, things of that nature. So I can't say that camping specifically would not occur, but we have no interest in creating a campground.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? All right. With that, this hearing is now closed. It is 8:41 and open up for council discussion. Council have anything? This is a discussion of mine. So if they decide to do camping and they'll be in the city limits, how does this zoning, does that supersede our municipal code?
What do you
Because
mean,
right
Mr.
now,
Mayor?
you can't camp in the city limit. You can't pitch
Camp-
camp in the city limits.
So this came
Campgrounds
up
are an
at planning.
allowable use in C3, so that is an allowable use.
Yeah. Same
Campground.
question came up at planning commission.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So the same question came up at planning commission because they're zoned C3 and camping and campgrounds are an allowable use.
Okay.
It trumps the other camping ordinance.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Trump. It's an allowed land use as a commercial activity as opposed to just sort of transient camping here or there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay. Any other discussion, council? Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Don't we have to move out of the meeting and then?
Already did.
Okay.
Do we have a,
Oh, wait a minute. I don't think we made a motion on this. Did we make a motion on
No,
this?
we didn't move out of the meeting and then make the
I
motion.
moved out of the meeting and we had council discussion, but we have
Okay.
not made the
Yeah,
motion.
You closed it at 8:41.
At 8:41, I closed it. We had council discussion. We need a motion. I'm sorry.
it's getting late.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 17, series 2020, an ordinance rezoning approximately 9.33 acres of property known as the Cabins Annexations numbers 1, 2, and 3 to the city of Idaho Springs to the commercial interchange C3 zone district.
Do I have a
A
second?
second.
Motion is second. Now discussion. Roll call again for the
Michael
record.
Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right. Welcome Zuri and Rachel into our community. Yay.
Hey.
All right.
Let's cancel.
I see Zuri doing a happy dance, if y'all could imagine that.
We appreciate it very, very much.
All right. Thank you very much.
Welcome aboard.
Okay, we're going to move down to our department heads reports. Andy, city administrator.
Mayor and council, you have my report with one request for action, please.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve an agreement for services with Historic Rail Ventures LLC in an amount not to exceed $15,000 for shipping the former Colorado and Southern Coach number 70 from Idaho Springs to Silver Plume, and for generating an assessment and scope of work for the coach's future restoration.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Mayor and council, if I may, Administrator Marsh knows this. If this could be a motion to approve that, subject to my final blessing, that would be great. Mr. I think Grable, who is with us at 6 o'clock. He and I are working through some, what he affectionately called legalese, and some legal language in the agreement concerning indemnification, which I'm sure that we can agree to. We just didn't have the chance to nail it down today. So if you bless this agreement, subject to my sort of final blessing, I think we're great. And I do not anticipate a problem, to be clear.
Okay, can we modify our motion, please?
Yeah, well, I'll the same motion. I don't think I need to read it all again. Just
Yep.
contingent upon council's approval.
And
Thank
second?
you.
Second.
And second, discussion.
I just thought I caught, and I don't have it in front of me, the transportation back is not included in that amount. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So what I've been working with the mayor of Silver Plume with is they're going to try to, I don't know who they've gotten, but they were going to try to work on waiving. They know people at CDOT that because some of the costs are oversized load permits and things like that. So Sam McCloskey is working with CDOT to see, because he's going to help with this haul, to see if we can have any fees waived. I have not waived. I have not heard anything about, he was trying to get the move done for free. So John, have you had any conversations with Mayor Klowski about that?
Yes, sir. So the thing with the move is that the train is so sensitive. He's going to be helping with the process, but they're getting just that specialized moving company to move it because it's literally the last one that exists. And so we really have to be careful. And so I think what History Colorado, or not History Colorado, but the Georgetown team has decided is they have a company that is just specializes in moving this equipment. And Mr. McCloskey is going to help, Mayor McCloskey is going to help with all of the work and kind of coordinating things at their shop. But when it comes to getting it on I-70, I don't know if any of you remember several years ago, I think Councilman Bowman was telling me one of the hose carts fell off a truck on I-70, and it was a pretty devastating blow for the city. So we're just trying to make sure that we keep this piece of equipment in the condition it's in now. And it's not that what he's offered us isn't terrific and he won't be involved. It's just that I think the Georgetown team feels a little bit more comfortable with this other team involved in the process.
So the motion reads, Elsa, an amount of not to exceed 15,000 for shipping former Colorado. So this does include shipping costs.
Yes, sir. It's in shipping and assessment of the coach, which will include giving us a list of things that we need to apply for grants for. So it should cover both of those activities. If there's a remainder, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but there may be restoration work they can do if there's a remainder. I'm not sure if that's accurate though.
That's correct.
Okay.
I thought it said the shipping return, it was one-way shipping, wasn't return shipping. I'm
That's
trying to
correct.
find.
It's one way. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right.
Then we're going to lay tracks and ride it back downhill.
You got it. That's the way to do it.
I like your thing. You like
Okay. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Rick Heckavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
Right. Now we'll move down. Thanks. Does anybody have any questions for Andy before we move on?
Yeah, I do. You had a meeting with the Soda Creek Highlands. I was wondering if you might be able to just share with us what that was about, what was discussed.
The developer for Soda Creek Highlands was asking questions about options for resubmitting, the possibility of us resubmitting, whether it be another rezoning request or whether he would submit something under the current zoning for that property. So that was the basic, basically what was discussed. So we're waiting to hear back from the applicant how he would like to proceed, if at all.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Andy. City Clerk, Diane?
Mayor and Council, you have my staff report for your review with no request for action. Just want to ask everybody if they got the sales tax report.
Did everybody?
Yes. Very nice.
Yeah, we should be pleased with that for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Diane? And as council knows, we the ballot measure for the city clerk being an appointed position moving into the future did fail pretty big. So, Diane will be retiring, or well, her term will be up in November. She says she's going to retire, but we're still not sure that she is.
And no reaction.
We can't see her face, so I don't know a reaction. So, all right. Thanks, Diane. We'll move to Chief Malanka, Police Department.
There we go. Unmuted. Mayor and Council, I'll refer you to my report. I have no request for action, but this evening, the sheriff did post that we are going back to stage 1 fire ban, which prohibits open fires, of course. They're going to be able to open the privately owned ranges, but shooting in the forest will not be permitted. So this is going back to where we were before all the fires started. I think people will enjoy that. You know, they could go back to barbecuing. They have to, of course, monitor their barbecues. So that's good news. I'll go ahead and circulate the formal document here after the meeting.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Questions for Chief Counsel?
Hey, Mike, if I may add something, we have been responding to reports of mask violations. We've issued 2 warnings with ultimatums, with 1 because the folks are pretty resistant. We have 1 confirmed COVID case that is possibly associated with one of our downtown establishments. There's an open investigation on that. I just want to remind everybody that, you know, we need to lead by example. So I think it's really important that we remind ourselves, and I've done it too, where I've run into the store or to the door and realized I forgot my mask and had to go back to the car. But people are looking at us in public. I did get a comment regarding somebody that's tied to the city not wearing their mask in public. So just remember, you know, we're all being watched, and I think it's so important that we are the examples.
Okay. Any questions for Chief?
Good point.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chief.
absolutely. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief. All right, we'll move down to John Bordoni. Water, wastewater, parks, streets, a little bit of everything.
Mayor and council, you have my staff report. I do have one request for action, and that is we recently had the streets milled around 13th Avenue, 14th Avenue, and that was to accommodate the new crosswalks and striping. This request is for that crosswalks and striping. And there may be a little modification to that based on a meeting that Andy and I had today with JVA. So the cost actually could be a little bit more to add some additional striping on 13th. So I'm not exactly sure what that would cost, but that's kind of where we sit right now.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
We move to approve $25,329 to Road Safe Traffic Systems, crosswalk, pavement marking installation from line item 2300-6016, with the understanding that additional cost may be incurred if additional striping is necessary on 13th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion, Bob, second. Discussion.
So we have enough money in the budget. We're not going to have to furlough any employees or anything like that.
No, I mean, this majority, a lot of this cost will come from the Safer Streets grant that the city received.
Oh, okay.
Is that emptying out that grant then, using the remainder of it, or?
Yes, it will pretty much delete that grant.
Okay. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Chuck Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right. So before we finish out, as all of council should know by now, if you don't, there was an incident at our wastewater plant this weekend, and everything that was supposed to be done has been done, reporting to the state. There's some documents that are having to be filled out that John Bordoni and Wayne Ramey are preparing to submit back to the state. What we are going to do is we are going to get a statement from the employees that were on duty at that time. And then we feel, and I'd kind of like some feedback, Andy and I have been talking about this, and we feel that it's really necessary that we do an internal investigation on exactly what happened. What was the causes of this? Is it our SCADA system that's failing that we need to be talking to Brown Hill about, or what exactly happened? So I just wanted to tell this group, to tell our council that when this happened, it went through the right chains. Everybody was notified that was supposed to be notified. John did his due diligence by contacting the state immediately, contacting the emergency line with Ramey Environmental, that's our ORC. So I'm very pleased with the course of action that happened after the incident happened. So we will conduct those internal investigations and let council know what we find. All right.
You want me to help with that, or?
I'm sorry?
You want me to help with that, or?
Really?
I'm available. I'm available if you need
me. Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else before we dismiss, council? All right. Everybody stay warm. Don't slip and slide on the ice and snow out there, and have a great rest of your evening. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.